Hi, 7th period. These are the notes for today on Monday and Tuesday, August 24th and 25th. Topic 3, Section 2, Amending the Constitution. So this is all about how we can make changes to the Constitution and why we make changes to the Constitution. There'll be some review in these notes as well. So in Article 4 of the Constitution, there is a formal amendment process. You have two different methods of how you can propose to amend and two different methods for ratification of the amendments. And then there's four possible methods of formal amendments. So 4 different ways to make them, 2 different ways to propose them, and 2 different ways to ratify. So proposal, you can either have Congress, 2/3 of the vote in both houses can call for an amendment. You can hold a national convention that's called by Congress, and when 2/3 of the state legislators request that amendment. So those are the 2 ways that you can propose an amendment. So to ratify or pass the amendment, you have to have 3/4 of the state legislatures and conventions in 3/4 of the states. So here is an image that shows that process. So we call this a perfect example of federalism. Federalism is the concept where you have the states and the national government working together. So, and you can step that down even further when you go from national to state to county, county to township, or small towns. So it's the proposals made at the national level, and then the states approve. So it shows both levels working together. In 1917, the 18th Amendment was proposed, and they gave 7 years a deadline for that ratification. This was argued that it was too long, too short, but the Supreme Court said that the Congress can place a reasonable amount of time limit on ratification. This is just at the end of World War I when this occurred. Now, there's one provision that says no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate, meaning that each state has its 2 votes. So the Bill of Rights was the first amendments that were proposed. They added them within 3 years of the Constitution. Basically, remember, we talked about the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. It was to appease the Anti-Federalist. And so these are our basic rights and freedoms as citizens. You guys are most familiar with the First and Second Amendment rights, but there are 10. 2 are kind of really not that imperative today. However, the other 8 are more central to how we function as a society. So the goal behind this Bill of Rights was to ensure that the federal government didn't impede on our individual rights. So how do you change the Constitution otherwise? Well, you have the formal amendment is very time consuming. And the Constitution has been changed to date for 27 times. However, it's had other although it's been officially changed 27 times, there's been other things that have been done to work around that. So there's 5 informal ways the Constitution has grown or changed. So you can have legislation, so through laws. Executive action, that's where the president does an executive order. However, those executive orders can be somewhat limited because they have to be constitutional. Court decisions, so this is the Supreme Court. So like the most recent famous Supreme Court, it's not in the Constitution, but the Supreme Court ruled gay marriage legal. So that would be a court decision. Although it's not officially stated in the Constitution, it is now law because it ruling that bias was against the law. So you have political party practices and then basic customs. Out of this, the most changes would happen in these first three items: legislation, executive action, and court decisions. So what is basic legislation? It's laws to clarify the Constitution. So example gives you here is regulate foreign and interstate commerce. What does that mean? Well, it means trade, so that the government can regulate that between us and other countries. So executive action is how the presidents will use power to grow the constitutions. If you don't know what POTUS means, it just means President of the United States. SCOTUS is Supreme Court in the United States. So executive agreements, these are agreements that the president makes with another leader of another country. The president can also do treaties, and that's a formal agreement between two states. And often, depending on the president, their interpretation of executive power. However, there's been call recently to start checking that executive power because for fear of authoritarian rule. So Supreme Court systems, power of judicial review. We're going to get into that a little bit more a little bit later. But with the power of judicial review allows the Supreme Court to determine how the wording of the Constitution is interpreted, and when they rule one way or the other, it expands what is acceptable by the Constitution. However, Supreme Court rulings can be overturned, such as Plessy versus Ferguson, as we've already learned. So although it's set for that amount of time, it's not often they're overturned, but they can be overturned. And it's just assumed as law. So party practices, there is nowhere in the Constitution does it call for the nomination of a candidate for president. So like the party conventions going on, Democratic convention just convened, the Republican National Convention will be starting. There's nothing in the Constitution regarding that, so that's just all pomp and circumstance. The Electoral College is right now the prime example, and this is who actually nominates the president. So every state has electoral votes, and those electoral votes are determined by how many House members of the House they have, plus their 2 senators. So this was installed basically to protect those slave states. At this point in time, with our size of our population and the expansion of our population, the big debate is, does this really need to continue to exist? Because a presidential candidate can get the majority vote but lose the Electoral College vote. So if they receive the majority vote, should they become president? So there's various unwritten customs and traditions. For example, the presidential cabinet, there's nowhere in the Constitution for it. This is just people that they feel, and today is probably more important than what it was when the country first started, but they ideally fill it with people of high skills in areas. So, for example, they would have somebody that would advise them on the economy if the economy is not their strong point, military, et cetera, et cetera. And then presidential succession, although this is not directly stated, but how the president, so if the president were to die or become incapacitated, then the vice president, if they were to be incapacitated, then it goes to the Speaker of the House and so forth. They have this succession about 26 or 28 people down. And then we have senatorial courtesy. So basically, the senator of a state is given quite a bit of power. So that's another thing that's not stated. You're more than welcome to go through this quiz, but you need to, I would address these questions to see if you should be able to answer one way or the other, and we can discuss in class. So go ahead and number 1 through 5, put your answer, and then we'll go over in class on it. If you have any questions or concerns, please either send me a remind, send me an email, and or send me a Canvas message. And study for your test if it is Monday, and if it's Tuesday, do your assignment. Have a great day.